We're going to call the meeting of the Carson City Board of Supervisors and the Carson City Liquor and Entertainment Board to order. Today is Thursday, December 4th, 2014. It is 8:30 a.m. and we are at 851 East William Street in our very own Carson City. Alan, for the record, get a roll. Can we have a roll call,
Supervisor
please?
Aboud. Here. Supervisor Bonkowski.
Here.
Supervisor McKenna. Here. Supervisor Shirk.
Here.
Mayor Kroll.
Here.
You have a quorum present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Is Father Chuck here this morning? Yes. Oh, Father Chuck, good morning.
Good morning.
Get us started, will you, please?
Thank you. I'm fine. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, supervisors, and everybody else. I thought I would do most appropriately with our weather, too, actually. But in my faith tradition, this season is not the Christmas season. It is Advent. Christmas comes a little later. And Advent is a time, among other things, to open our hearts anew to the movement of God, the Spirit of love in our lives. So I use this prayer. It's called an Advent shower psalm, and it's by Father Ed Hayes. Isaiah of old prayed, "Let the earth open wide her mouth, as justice descends, O heavens, like the dew from above. Like gentle showers, let salvation fall from the skies. Let justice spring up and salvation bud forth. Come, gentle rain of Adventtide, soak deep into our hearts, calling forth signs of an early spring. Make buds appear on our heart's barren rosebush and blooms on its dried flower stalks. Come, showers of silence, and wet our souls. Soak deeply with your fertile fingers, dripping heaven's dew. Advent prayer of December stillness, dampen our dry souls. Coax forth green leaves of the Spirit, and bring forth buds of bright flowers. As green trees flicker with magic lights, and green wreath circles whirl on front doors, red-bowed in festive joy. May soggy souls ooze out awesome gifts, for Emmanuel, God among us, is awakened from a year-long slumber by gentle mists of Advent longing, and is eager to give gifts of love, presence of your presence. Radiant rain God, make us your brimful clouds, ready to shower down Emmanuel's justice and peace upon all we meet. We make this prayer as your holy and humble people. Amen. Thank you. It's a baby.
Join me in the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're now on item number 5, public comment. This is the time for public to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Board of Supervisors or the Liquor Board. We'll have that another public comment there. We also have public comment usually during each of the agenda items and at the end of the agenda. Anybody? I don't see anybody. Okay, so then we'll close off public comment now, and we'll take it as appropriate when it comes up during the hearing, during our meeting today. We'll move on to item number 6 for possible action on the approval of the minutes. We have 4 sets of minutes to look at and approve or modify. Has everybody had a chance to look at all 4? We'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of August 7th.
I move to approve the minutes of August 7th, 2014 as presented.
Second.
Motion second. On the motion, discussion? Hearing none, all.
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
discussion.
Mayor.
Go.
I
Sorry.
I talked to Alan Glover earlier about this. I did want to bring up a few things on item 11. There was a great discussion with NNDA, and there's a couple of things I would like to bring forward and make sure we get into the minutes of the meeting. One was we talked about their budget, and it was accepted by this board that percentages of their budget rather than the actual dollar amounts were acceptable, and I argued against that. The second item I'd like to bring up is the jobs and companies that NNDA brought forward. We had questions and discussions about that, and there was a related subject matter. The number of jobs that NNDA in their record showed versus my discussion with them was a difference. Also, I'd like to mention on NNDA website, the project that was behind the Nugget was discussed. And also, there was a discussion about non-disclosure signed by board members, and there was also a discussion about how well NNDA works with the governors. On that being said, I would, that is my input on item 11 of the August 7th meetings.
Okay, Jim, you got to help me here. There's a lot there. I'm not certain that all that should be encompassed in a minute, but I think, you know, where it says that you have expressed objection to the documentation by NNDA, does that not clarify, I mean, does that not tee us into that there is a discussion on that issue? Or is it, I'm not certain exactly what you're looking for. I don't know how we go back and do that. If there's a written, go ahead.
Talking to Supervisor Shirk, what we'll do is take his comments today and put them in today's minutes and then refer them back to the meeting of August 7th.
All right, then we will not take a motion.
Should be able to accept them.
Yeah, if you go ahead and approve the minutes of August 7th.
And then do what?
And then we'll take his comments of today and put them in today's minutes.
Oh, okay. Is that all right with you, Supervisor Shirk?
Yes, that's what we already discussed.
All right. All right. On the motion, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, on August 21st, everybody there?
I move to accept the minutes of August 21st, 2014 as presented.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. August 28th?
I move to approve the minutes of August 28th, 2014 as presented.
Second.
On the motion, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. September 4th?
I move to approve the minutes of September 4th, 2014 with a correction to item 12 to show that the mayor was an abstention and not absent.
I'm probably both. On the motion, is there a second to that motion?
I second it.
A motion on the motion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay. Now on the agenda, any changes, City Manager?
Mr. Mayor, we're going to pull item 12B, that'd be 12 Bravo.
I like that, 12 Bravo, good for you.
Right. Other than that, no changes.
Thank you. All right, Board. Hearing none, unless there's objection, we'll take the agenda as adopted, as published. We'll now recess as the Board of Supervisors and reconvene as the Liquor and Entertainment Board, and the record will show, Alan, I think I can do it like this, record will show the Board of Supervisors here and the Sheriff Furlong is here as well. Is that all right? All right. Well, we have another. Oops.
Was that a vote?
That's a vote. Okay. All right.
I apologize.
That's okay. Wait, that was sounded pretty good, actually. So, okay. We're now on public comment for the Liquor and Entertainment Board. Anybody? All right. We'll close off public comment under the Liquor and Entertainment Board. At the opening public comment, we'll now take up the minutes of June 19th, 2014.
I move to approve the minutes of the Carson City Liquor and Entertainment Board for June 19th, 2014, with a correction to item 13 to show that the applicant is SM Rafter LLC and not MS Rafter LLC.
Second.
Motion and second on the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you. On July 3rd, 2014.
I move to approve the minutes of the Carson City Liquor and Entertainment Board for July 3rd, 2014, as presented.
Second.
Motion and second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Let's now move on to item 12. This is possible action to approve Tony Fish as the liquor manager for Sassafras. Lena, do you want to take us through this?
This item is for possible action to approve Anthony Fish as the liquor manager for Sassafras LLC, liquor license number 15-30294, located at 1500 Old Hot Springs Road. They are applying for a dining room with a full bar license, and staff is recommending approval.
Public comment on this issue? Tony, come on up. Tell us what's going on.
Well, we're
Good morning to you.
Morning. How's everybody?
Doing well.
Getting ready to open. Everything's looking good.
You know, I'd ask you all the usual questions, but I know you've been in the business, so.
I've been around here for about 20 years and have
Okay.
worked for a lot of people, managed for a lot of people, and kind of know what I'm doing.
Very good. Board questions, discussion?
I just want to wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to get back cooking.
Okay, I miss Tony's tacos. Okay, all right. Anybody want to make a motion? Supervisor Abel, shoot.
I move to approve Anthony Fish as the liquor manager for Sassafras LLC, liquor license number 15-30294, located at 1500 Old Hot Springs Road.
Motion and second by Supervisor McKenna on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Go forth. Do well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Okay. All right. We're now at public comment, closing public comment for Liquor and Entertainment Board. Anybody on closing public comment? Seeing none, then we'll unless there's something else has to come before us, we will adjourn as the Liquor and Entertainment Board, and now we'll reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. We'll take up item 16. This is the Carson City Airport Authority. My partner, Steve Takis, is the legal counsel for the Airport Authority, and he's here this morning, and I will be, in addition to this disclosure, I will be abstaining and leaving the dais and turning it over to Mayor Pro Tem Supervisor Abel. Thank you, Karen.
I'm going to officially open this public hearing of the Carson City Airport Authority and ask Steve Takis if he'd like to come up to the podium and explain what we're doing here.
Good morning. Steve Takis from the Carson City Airport Authority. This public hearing and resolution is to adopt a lease extension to a 1981 lease at the airport. There is currently an active business in the lease. It's James T. Wickersham, who restores, actually has a regional and probably a national following. He restores Russian and Czechoslovakian aircraft and sells them in the United States. He has quite a following. He's one of the active businesses on the airport. The lease, as it stands right now, would expire in August of 2017, which means that he would either have to start winding down his business because he wouldn't have a location to continue to perform in, or find a way to extend his lease. His original lease was actually about 2 acres in size. The solution that we came up with is to reduce the footprint of his leasehold to under 25,000 feet, and under NRS 244.2833, that allows us to give him a 5-year lease, in this case a 5-year extension on his lease, so that he can continue to conduct business on the Carson City Airport. As a result, the item that we have in front of you is a document which reduces the size and extends the term of the lease. It also substantially increases the lease payment that he makes because beginning in 2017, he'll be renting a parcel that is improved, has an aircraft hangar on it, albeit an old one. And so for those reasons, we would ask you to go ahead and take any comment, consider the matter, and the Airport Authority's recommendation is that you approve this matter, adopt the resolution, and approve the lease amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone on the board have any questions of Steve before he sits down?
Steve, one item that I want to just put on the record, you and I had a discussion about the legal description. For anybody out there that actually read it, the first 2 lines of the legal description only change the point of origin for the legal description and do not encompass any square footage for this lease. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And it does read a little funny because it starts at the original point where you would take the heading, or the bearing rather, to get to the point of beginning for the old lease, and then it goes from that point to the new corner of the new lease. And if you look at the bearings on those two pieces, the bearings are identical. So when you look at it, you go, well, why didn't you just add the two numbers together and make it one straight line? But the logic of the engineer is he wanted to make it clear. It means the same thing. 2 + 2 is still 4. He just wanted to make it clear that here's the change in the size of the area and the point of beginning. But yes. And then I should also point out that Supervisor Bonkowski found a couple of typos. They're non-substantive, and so I've corrected those references. Things like the word lease should have been leased with a D at the end. And we've given those corrections to the recording secretary to substitute those pages.
Any other board comment? Any public comment on this item?
Resolution number is 2014 R30.
I'm going to close the public hearing and bring this back to the board for a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 2014 R-30 and approve the reduction of area, extension of term, and restatement of Carson City Airport lease agreement for the lease between James Wickersham, Shade Tree Aviation, Inc., and the Carson City Airport Authority for parcel W1-B on the maps recorded with the original lease as document number 6395, originally titled Sage Air Service Lease, which lease is in the best interest of Carson City.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to turn the gavel back over to Mayor Bob.
Thank you. All right. We'll now take up item number 17, Finance. Nick, you want to
Sure, Mayor.
what's going on here?
Sure. For the record, Nick Providenti, Finance Director. This is the report that's required by statute to be given to the board at each regular meeting. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Public comment, public questions, comments to us anyway? Board? Motion's in order.
I move to accept the report on the condition of each fund in the Treasury and the statements of receipts and expenditures through November 24th, 2014 per NRS 251.030 and NRS 354.290.
Motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, now let's take up item 18 Alpha. How's that, City Manager?
18 Alpha. I'll go ahead and do this one. I believe it is en route, but if there's any questions, I believe Rob's here to answer them. We're asking you to approve contract number 1415-113 pursuant to NRS 3321151B and NRS 625530 with BDA Architecture to provide design, development, and construction bidding assistance for the Carson City Animal Control Facility through December 31, 2016 for a contract amount of $283,995 plus an additional services budget of $28,000 for a total not to exceed price of $311,995 to be funded from the Animal Control Facility account. This actually will be funded through our new fund that we've established for the 1/8 cent infrastructure sales tax amount. In speaking about that, we just issued the bonds on Tuesday. We sold them. We got a really good interest rate on those bonds. We'll be actually closing on December 17th. So what we'll do is we're planning on, reallocating the budgets. We didn't put those bond amounts in the budget when we originally did the budget back in May. So we'll be augmenting the budget. We're getting $13,600,000 plus, and we'll be allocating those amounts in that fund. And I believe we'll be allocating the amounts. We're probably going to have be having a meeting with Andy and with Darren to determine the costs and where they're going to be going for each of the projects. So that's kind of the plan on that. So if there's any specific questions on the actual contract, I believe Rob's here. He could answer those for you.
Go.
Rob, maybe you can answer this. Originally in the strategic plan in terms of planning and groundbreaking and so forth, I believe we had completion scheduled for 2016 for the animal shelter, but there's an adjustment to that schedule, is my understanding based on this document. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, there's an adjustment on the schedule. We looked at the likelihood that we could get the facility open December of this next year, and I posed that question to the architect. He came up with a schedule, a very aggressive schedule to do that, and that's what we're going to work towards.
So completion date is for?
December 15th.
Okay, great.
2015.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Good morning.
There we go. It went off. Couple quick questions on Exhibit A, and I apologize for not getting these questions to you. On page 1.1.2, it says the architect had sent out interviews and questionnaires to develop the building program and determine the space requirements. Has the Humane Society been involved in this and what they need in the new facility? Have they been interviewed and had input into the space requirements they're looking at?
Not yet specifically, but just to note that step one has been completed. That was the first part of the project. We will be meeting with the Humane Society and others to work out any adjustments we need to make in the floor plan. So that's going to come up here this month. So right after this meeting, we're going to be setting up meetings to meet with the people who need to be at that meeting and then go with the architect to make any adjustments to the floor plan.
So they'll be involved in it before
Definitely.
we have final design. Humane Society will have some input into what they're looking for.
Definitely.
Okay. On page 2. Sorry, page 2. The schedule is dependent upon the approval, and this is on section 2.2. The schedule is dependent on the approval of the city to begin the geotech report and the geography survey of December 5th, on December 5th, 2014. Are we on track to do that?
We will be. And it's like I said, everything is very tight. You know, we're going to be working with contracts to get the notice to proceed so we can, execute the contract. Once the contract is executed, then those tasks can be scheduled and completed.
Okay.
So we want to do that.
Yeah, I figured that, but I'm just saying December 5th, I mean, that's like Friday, so.
So that means right after the meeting, I mean, we need
That
to execute the contract, get an email to the consultant so he can execute it, and then we're good to go.
And then we'll be on track, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then on page 3, 5.1.7, the LEED certificate preparation, what is that?
The LEED certificate, that's something that we may consider on doing, make this a LEED project, but that involves, and I'm not up on LEED certification, but that involves reusing different items to make the building more green as far as we're not providing new materials. We're reusing old materials in this new building. And that there's, I'm sure, many other things. I'm sure Karen could speak to that. But
Yeah, I'll just elaborate, Jim. That is a specific certification. It is expensive. Green does add up to money. But with that being said, certain elements of the building may include LEED certified items.
Yeah. That's what I was leading to.
Yeah, for instance, we're looking at a green roof in the rear of the building.
Correct.
Which means, we use different media that may grow some vegetation or something in that manner.
Are we going to have any solar there?
Not specifically, not at that site. We do have solar at the site that offsets some of the power costs, and that's going to be expanded.
Are we applying for any grants for any solar or any other green certificates or anything? Are we getting any granting and any funding for that, for this facility? Mm-hmm. Being in the new facility being built, I would hope that we're looking at putting in solar and some other items as well. Is that not the case, or are we still looking at it?
Well, not on this site, because there's not enough room for those kind of things. But as a whole, the corporation yard is expanding the solar as far as the city is concerned, yeah.
Thank you. And final question is, on the architectural inspections, they're having a Terrence Melby?
Melby, yeah.
Yeah, from GML Architects. Are they local?
Yes, they're out of Reno, and we're also going to be using RCI to do the site civil. And so that's just a way of cutting some costs and getting some local folks involved. So we thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, no, I do too. Thank you.
I just have a policy question for the DA and the city manager. On the first page of the professional services consultant agreement, on the third whereas, it says this contract does not involve a public works project, and that has just been a policy decision on professional services agreements. And I just think that we should take a look at that, just because it's a professional services agreement, but it's a contract for a specific project, which is a public works project. Just like to see if we can get a determination of how we should designate that. It doesn't have to be an answer today, just asking that we look into that in the future.
Morning, Rob.
Good morning.
So this project has been moved up, trying to get it finished next year.
Yes.
I worry when I hear things like that because we have so many other things. I don't want the MAC to slip. Is this going to impact any other projects? Is it going to cost money because we moved it up? Why the change?
Just looking at the other projects coming down the line and getting these two off the, on track and done, completed first before we move on to the corridors and things, we looked at decreasing the time, and it looks like we can do that, so we want to try to do that. There's some things that have to happen as far as utilities and coordination, but it won't derail or change any of the other projects.
Okay, I hope that happens. It's not been my experience, I'll put it that way.
Well, I've got like 10 or 12 projects, and
okay.
This is going to be one
Can
of
you
those.
once again tell the people that are watching this on TV exactly where this building is going to be? Because I still get questions.
Okay. As you go on East 5th Street to the east, and you pass the old prison, and you come to where the wastewater treatment plant, that's now Airport Road. You take a left turn there, and you actually cross the drainage that drains out of Eagle Valley, and then you're approaching the Corporation Yard. So on the right-hand side, right on the corner of the Corporation Yard, that's where the facility will be as you're going north. So
Okay.
you can have a good view of the mountains and of the freeway and everything, where the high school is. You're right there on Airport Road in the southwest corner of the Corporation Yard.
What happens to the treated effluent loading area, and how prone to flood is it there?
We're actually above that. We're a little bit to the north. That's still going to stay the same. That's floodplain, and so nothing's going to happen there.
Let me ask you another question that's probably maybe related or unrelated, but maybe Darren should answer this one too. Talk to us about why the rock wall was taken down along 5th Street and where the rock is and what's going on with that, please.
Well, I know a little bit about that,
Okay.
but Darren could speak to it. But
All right.
we're in the process of redoing major things at the wastewater treatment plant, and looking at the landscaping and the path, we felt it was time to really spruce that area up, and the wall was in disrepair, and really it's a rubble stacked wall, and so we want to do something a little different, a little easier to maintain and take care of. And as far as the rubble and the rock, it went out to the landfill somewhere. I don't know anything about that, but Darren wants to add anything, or
I can add.
okay.
Morning, for the record, Susan Dorpansky. So the rock wall, we've gotten a couple questions about it actually from a historic standpoint. We've had some inquiries. The rock wall was approved to be removed by the Historic Resources Commission. It was determined by the archaeologist hired by Public Works that it was not historic. It was, from my understanding, to accommodate future expansion of the treatment plant. And The rocks, as Rob said, were moved out to the landfill. But we have answered the questions of people that have called our office and let them know that while, yes, it was built by the prisoners, and yes, it was, it looked historic, it actually wasn't. And they did have approval to remove it as a part of their contract. So.
Is it part of the landscaping, the trail landscaping there along Fifth Street?
Darren Schultz, Public Works for the record. Yes, that area where the rock wall was, that is going to be landscaped and approved as part of the wastewater treatment plant, as part of our permit moving forward with planning to do our work there. So it'll be much improved when we're finished.
Just as a historical note, maybe it went to the Historical Resource Commission, but I heard from somebody who was closely associated with the prison who said that the rock on that rock wall actually was what do they call it, slag that came off the rocks when they were chipping them to build the prison and other facilities with the granite the stone that they were building. Just an interesting historical note, I think.
And I believe that some of the rocks was, but unfortunately, when the wall was built, there was also pieces of roadbed and concrete, asphalt mixed in with that. So although I think there was pieces of that probably were, had some history there, but the wall overall was, and then it was, our biggest problem was it was falling down, falling over, and we looked at it, could we make this part of the landscaping for the plant in the future, try and fit this in, but it wasn't safe. We didn't feel like we could protect it to where it could be safe, where people could. The idea is for this, when we build this landscaping and it's going to be along the path there, we want it to be interactive, where people can stop off the path and get some information about our treatment facility and that sort of thing. And we just couldn't have the public in and around that wall. So.
All right. I apologize to the board and the public for kind of going off, but I think we're in the same general area out there. Supervisor McCann, go.
As long as we're off on a tangent.
I didn't call it a tangent.
I have never.
Somewhat relevant.
I've never been so frightened in my life as of walking past that wall and the snakes coming out of it in the hot summer days. So.
Okay. Thanks, Darren. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for indulging the comments there. Okay. Public comment. Anybody? Further board comment? All right, who wants to make a motion for the animal shelter? Supervisor Abott, go.
I move to approve contract number 1415-113 pursuant to NRS 332115, subsection 1B, and NRS 625.530 with BDA Architecture, PC, to provide design, development, and construction bidding assistance for the Carson City Animal Control Facility through December 31st, 2016, for a contract amount of $283,995, plus an additional services budget of $28,000, for a total not to exceed price of $311,995, to be funded from the Capital Projects Animal Control Facility account as provided for in fiscal year 2014-2015 and fiscal year 2015-2016.
Motion in 3 seconds. On the motion, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Look forward to a ribbon cutting next December. All right. Thank you. All right, we'll clap for that one. That's good. All right, thank you. All right, let's take up 18B, Western Nevada Supply. Is there a disclosure on this?
Yes, I need to disclose before we get started on this. As president of the Greenhouse Project, I arguably have a commitment in a private capacity to the Greenhouse Project's significant financial supporters. However, because the Greenhouse Project is a nonprofit organization that benefits the entire community, and I personally do not obtain economic gain directly from the Greenhouse Project, it would be appropriate for me to disclose my commitment in a private capacity to Western Nevada Supply as a substantial donor to the Greenhouse Project. But because my independent judgment regarding the best interests of the city is not materially affected by this relationship, and Western Nevada Supply's company support of the Greenhouse Project provides a benefit that is no greater than the benefit accruing to the Carson City community as a whole, I am entitled to vote on this matter pursuant to NRS 281A.420, subsection 4.
Very good. Okay, Ms. Bill, go.
Good morning, Mayor and Supervisors. Sorry I was late for the other item. This is a request to determine that Western Nevada Supply Company is the lowest responsible bidder, and allow Public Works to purchase warehouse inventory parts on an as-needed basis. There are 10 pages that are attached in your board packets of the different items that they wish to purchase. This is just to keep in inventory in their warehouse, things like pipes, sewer, water, and so forth. If you have specific questions about the inventory items, I'm sure Darren can answer those questions.
Good morning, Darren. Come on up.
Come on down. Good morning.
You already know what I'm going to ask, but a couple of questions for you. First, can you clarify for us how this process works when there's no dollar amount on this PO? So just explain to us, how do we account for the expenditures and how are they reconciled against the line items in the budget?
Okay, what we do, Darren Schultz, Public Works for the record. What we do is when we prepare our budgets each year, we have line items for each division within Public Works that include materials and supplies that would come out of this warehouse. And so each division, we estimate what they're going to need in terms of pipes, pumps, motors, equipment, gloves for the shovels. And there's a specific line item in each of the divisional budgets for this type of material. So on a yearly basis, that's how we control the cost of what is being spent in warehouse supplies. That's spread across, eight divisional budgets typically is a line item amount. And then throughout the year, when a sewer crew needs a shovel, they go to the warehouse, they get that shovel, that is charged against their line item for the budget for that year. So every year, we set up a line item specifically for this type of supplies.
And so how do you prevent expenditures over those line items?
If our idea at the beginning of the year is a best guess estimate of how much we will need, and then we watch it throughout the year. I watch it as well as senior managers watch it to see what's going on. It does happen where some years we go over on that line item because we have to buy something that we didn't foresee at the beginning of the year, or we have two big valves go out at the same time, and that line item goes over. What we have to do is make sure that the overall budget, I have many line items. So then as soon as that happens, then I look somewhere else. I've got to save some money because the bottom line cannot change, because then Nick comes down. Good news, Nick. So I still have to meet my overall budget, and so I'm constantly, those line items, I'm trying to juggle those to make sure that I'm staying in line, because ultimately they're just guesses at the beginning of the year. We try to.
Western Nevada Supply was the only bidder on this contract, so what would happen to your ability to procure items if we were not to approve this today?
Normally, one note on that, normally we have two bidders for this contract. The other bidder did not bid it this year, and when we reached out to them, we did not get a response as to why. If we did not approve this contract with Western Nevada Supply, what would happen is we could spend up to $100,000 with Western Nevada Supply without a contract, and then we would be done. We couldn't spend any more money with Western Nevada Supply for parts because we can only go up to 100 by state law. So we'd be in a little bit dire straits. We'd have to shop around to other suppliers to get our parts to try and stay with under $100,000, because we're not allowed to spend over that.
This contract is for a one-year term with the ability to renew it for 5 years, subject to negotiation. Can you kind of give us the thinking behind why we would want a 5-year renewal on a one-year contract and what that means, subject to negotiation?
It is very unique, and we don't typically see these type of things. The idea behind this, and this was the way we adopted some time ago, this process, was it's a little bit unique in dealing with these suppliers, these vendors, and if you give them a long-term contract, it tends to people change, management changes, and your service and or your cost over a longer term contract the service goes down, the cost goes up. Our intent by doing it 1 year at a time is, and that those year renewals are only based on the city, is our attempt to do that is so that if service goes down, or if they're not providing their costs, they give us their next year adjusted cost is too high, we can exit out, we can rebid the project. We could just rebid this project every year, but because of the nature of it and typically getting two bidders and or one bidder, we've found that this process works to just at the end of the year, how did it go this last year as far as service, and what is their adjustment on prices for the year ahead? And if that's reasonable, then we will renew it for 1 more year and continue that process forward.
So to clarify, even though the contract says a 5-year renewal, it's actually 5 annual renewals?
That's correct. Up to 5 years, yeah.
Okay. And then for Kim, there were 2 corrections to the contract. There was a duplication of 1 paragraph. Was that
right,
corrected?
That was part of the RFP document itself. It was a sample contract. It was not the contract itself. We are doing a purchase order to purchase the material and supplies, and there's a purchase order terms and conditions that's attached to the purchase order, and basically it simplifies the contract language, and the vendor has to follow those purchase order terms and conditions if they're going to use the purchase order.
But the template's being corrected?
The template's being corrected, yes.
Thank you.
Darren, just a quick question. In the operating expenses for each department, should, let's say, the water not use what they put in the line item, then could the sewer use what they did not use?
No.
It stays each individual,
That's right.
correct?
It has to stay within the divisional budgets.
And it comes back on the renewal. It'll come back to the board for approval every year annually.
Every year. That's right.
I'm just curious. When the parts are ordered, are they delivered, or do we have to pick them up? I was just curious.
They're delivered.
They're delivered.
Yes.
That is incorporated in this contract price as well.
That's correct. That's correct. Now that's for parts that we order, to restock the warehouse. If, for instance, we had a sewer main or a break yesterday and we needed a part, we'll send somebody directly to Western Nevada to pick up the part and bring it. But for the warehouse, the stocking, they deliver. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Darren? So suppose we didn't use Western Nevada Supply. Suppose we hired people to do this in-house. Would we save money?
As far as hiring people in-house to acquire the parts and the materials?
Basically do what Western Nevada does. They accumulate parts and order parts from manufacturers,
Yeah.
et cetera.
I don't believe we would save money because Western Nevada is a big group. They have buying power. They would buy a lot more. I mean, they supply warehouses all around, and so their rates are going to be better than our rates. We want to buy 2 widgets. They buy 20 widgets, so they're going to get a cheaper rate there. Furthermore, the time for us to shop around to get the lowest price on every little piece that we get, I mean, that'd be a manpower suck, and I don't see any savings there.
Any other comments on the board? Questions? Public comment? Don't see any. Motion's in order. Supervisor Abel.
Okay. I move to determine that Western Nevada Supply Company is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder pursuant to Nevada Revised Statute, Chapter 332, and to authorize Public Works to purchase warehouse inventory parts on an as-needed basis through November 30th, 2015, with the option to renew for 5 additional years, subject to negotiation, to be funded from the various operating supplies accounts in the water, sewer, storm drain, streets, and landfill funds as provided in fiscal year 2014-2015 budget.
Motion by Supervisor Abel, a couple seconds on the motion. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kim. All right. Let's move to item 19, Public Works Transportation Planner position. Who's going to deal with this? Mr. Pittenger, good morning.
Oops. Good morning, Patrick Pittenger, Transportation Manager, Carson City Public Works Department. I will just summarize the contents of the board forum. We're requesting authorization to hire a transportation planner position to fill a vacated accountant position, which is budgeted and previously existed in Public Works. We had a good accountant staff member who was luckily promoted into a different department within the city, and while we were sorry to see her go, we looked as a Public Works management staff with Darren Schultz at the bigger picture as far as the duties of that position and how much true accounting work there was to do. After looking at it, we determined that we would prefer to have a transportation planner position reporting to myself and have the accounting duties spread among that individual and other existing individuals in the transportation group to fulfill those duties. As is indicated here, these are the existing position. The accountant position is a CCEA classified position. The one that is proposed is also a CCEA classified position. The salary range is slightly higher for the proposed position. However, we believe strongly that we'll be able to get a larger reimbursement for that person so that there will actually be a net benefit financially to the city. And finally, this was brought before the Internal Finance Committee on November 12th and approved.
A couple of questions up here. Start with Supervisor Abad, then go to Supervisor Binkowski.
Hi, Patrick. You elaborated on this a little bit, but I'd like you to elaborate further. Explain how the federal or state reimbursement differs for this position, why you expect to get more to cover the cost.
Certainly. The accountant position that was previously filled was fulfilling duties that were part of the responsibility of our group, so there were some reimbursements that were available, but the person was also doing some duties that were unrelated to our group. Those duties will be handled by other administrative staff within the department. So when with this position is filled as requested as a transportation planner, they would be taking on more duties that are directly related to transportation and therefore eligible for reimbursement.
And then secondly, why do you feel the need for another transportation planner? Just elaborate on that.
Right now we run with quite a small group. There are only 3 of us. So we have myself, a senior transportation planner who previously actually occupied this position. He was promoted about 5 years ago, and a transit coordinator. So it's quite a small group. So we have some duties that that are not as fast as being produced as they should be, and also, for example, this week we've got a staff member that's out of town in training, which is a wonderful thing, but it leaves the other of us spread a little bit thin trying to cover.
Brad.
Patrick, I wanted to commend you on once again stepping outside the box and looking for very innovative and efficient ways to get more work done for the same amount of money, or in this case a little bit more money, but we get it actually overall the net to the city is a better position. Do you have an internal policy within your department that would guide, say, your predecessor to continue policies like this? Successor. Yeah, successor. Sorry. Sorry.
Do you mean to continue the actions that I've taken?
Right, because today, because you're in this position, the city's going to see a net benefit here. But if you left or moved to another position, how do we ensure that this benefit continues going forward?
I don't believe there's any written policy. However, I think that in the 8+ years that I have been here working with my colleagues, if the joke as a transit director is, if I get hit by a bus, the city's going to be okay because you have Darren, above me, who obviously knows what we've been doing, and we also have succession planning. A guy named Dan Denges, who's our senior transportation planner, who's extremely well versed and fills in for me when I'm gone. So I think that there's the culture of the organization. We know what we're doing now.
Thank you.
It's not just me.
Jim.
Good morning. Just out of curiosity, how long was the accountant position held?
About 4.5 years, okay. Approximately.
And just out of curiosity, again, when it says on the increased ability for federal and state reimbursement is expected, what happens if it is not expected? and it didn't come through.
Well, I'll just briefly, the nature of the funds that I'm speaking of, these are not grants that you apply for and hope to get next year. These are formula funds that are granted to us regularly. This isn't an application and you wonder if you're going to get it. And just so you know, the reimbursement for myself and 2 staff members currently, last year and previous years, has averaged about 80%. So I actually took 10% off to be conservative.
Okay. And then a follow-up question is, the salary is $45,000, reimbursement of 15%, and salary 55, reimbursement of about 70%. That's good. Just want to point that out.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
John.
Well, Patrick, I had no idea that Brad was going to kill you off, but
Like I said, I'll get hit by a bus.
it leads to a different question, though, that the city needs to watch out for. From my discussions with you and your staff, how soon do we reach burnout before we start losing people like you elsewhere and that sort of thing?
Tomorrow?
Well, I hope no day soon, and I certainly would, what I responded to as far as Supervisor Bonkowski's question, a position like this will give us a little bit of backup and give us the ability to try to do things in a more timely manner. We're doing the best we can, but this will certainly be of help to both our group and hopefully the department.
Are we missing any opportunities to improve our streets and transportation because we don't have enough staff in your department?
No, I don't. I believe our primary issue regarding the repair streets is the general funding situation we've been in, which I won't cover now, but we've been able to do things like retain the services of the University of Nevada to help us with our pavement management system, so there's nothing lacking there.
And there'll be a report on that next week at the RTC meeting.
You are correct.
But the thing is that we've got the indexing of sales tax, indexing of gas tax going on the ballot tentatively in 16, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Are there things that you need to do? Why are we underfunded on the streets budget? Is it because of staff? Is it because of...
No, it's not because of staff. It's because of like I said, I don't want to cover the whole thing, but basically we have more roads than we used to have. Our roads are older than they used to be. They are deteriorating. And the fuel tax, which is the primary funding source for repair of roads in our city, is not worth as much money as it used to be. So there is a structural shortfall in the amount of funds available compared to the funds needed to properly maintain our roads.
Public comment? Board, anything else? Go. Motion, Supervisor.
I move to approve a transportation planner position within the Public Works Department. This position will replace a vacated accountant position.
Motion by Supervisor Bonkowski, second by Supervisor Shirk on the motion. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Let's go to 20, open space. This is the FLAP, the project memorandum. Morning, Ms. Bollinger. How are you? Why don't you tell us about this, what it's going to cost us, if anything, and why we want to be involved.
Good morning, Mayor. For the record, Ann Bollinger, Open Space Administrator. If I can, I'd like to provide a brief background on what brought us to where we are today. In 2002, there was a state ballot question, number 1, the Conservation Resource Protection Grant, approved by voters statewide. That also included $5 million allocated to a Tahoe bike path, as it was called at that time. Since that point, our department has worked with Washoe County, Douglas County, in identifying the alignment for this 30-plus mile bikeway from Incline Village down to Douglas County, and a couple miles of that trail has now been constructed. Last year, there was the State Route 28 Corridor Management Plan that was approved by the board. And in that plan, that was the first time really that Patrick Pittenger and the Regional Transportation Commission really became involved in this project as well, because it looked at the entire corridor. Now, this is the next step moving forward towards implementation, and this is the agreement in front of you today. The reason that perhaps, I guess, my name is on the lead versus Patrick's is because this agreement at this point in time is focusing more on the bikeway, but we will continue those close communications to make sure everyone is well informed as well. Also today in the audience is Karen Mullen and Derek Kirkland with the Tahoe Transportation District, and they can also answer more questions on this funding and the project.
And our obligation as a community, what's the cost to us for executing this?
To execute this agreement, there is no cost to us. As the project moves forward into design, maintenance and management costs will be identified, and at that point in time, more agreements will move forward. This project in the Carson City jurisdiction identifies 3 parking lots along Highway 28, which are located on U.S. Forest Service property. At this point in time, they are agreeing to maintain those parking lots.
Okay. So with this one, what we're really focusing on is, I understand you're here on the bikeway, but we're focusing on the parking lots that the Forest Service owns?
In the Carson City jurisdiction, the funding agreement also will construct 3 miles of pathway from Incline Village to Sand Harbor.
Okay. All right. Board, anybody? Supervisor Shirk, then Supervisor Abowd.
Just out of curiosity, it says the anticipation the improvements will be funded through the reimbursement of FLAP funds. Supposing that doesn't come true, then where will the funding come from?
I will defer to Derek Kirkland possibly to answer that question.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Derek Kirkland with Tahoe Transportation District. If you could repeat that question for me, I didn't catch all that.
The anticipation that these improvements. Sorry, I'm having trouble with the mic. They don't want to hear me. So, the anticipation that these improvements will be funded through the reimbursement of the FLAP funds. What is the FLAP funds? And supposing those do not come through, then where will the funding come from?
So the federal land, FLAP is short for the Federal Lands Access Program funds. That was a grant that TTD and NDOT applied for after the completion of the corridor management plan last October. We recently found out that we were awarded about $12.5 million of Federal Lands Access Program funds. There's also a variety of local and state funds, some from Washoe County, some from the state of Nevada through the State Question 1 funds. That will be added to the project. There's also Federal Highways Scenic Byways grant of about $2 million. In total, the project's about $25 million. That's involved with this Federal Lands Access Program agreement that's in front of you today. So basically what this agreement does is allows all the partners that are involved in this agreement to move forward with the project, and it allows the Federal Highway Administration through their Central Federal Lands Highways Division to actually to obligate that money to this project. So once the agreement's executed, that money is basically set aside for this project at that point.
You're pretty self-assured that the funding will come from this, though, right?
Correct. Yeah, the Federal Lands Access Program money is there, so it's just a matter of executing the agreement and moving forward on the project. So
the extension of the parking lots, and they're adding more spaces, is that the intent is to get parking off the highway? Is that correct?
Yeah, what the corridor management plan identifies is not eliminating parking, but it's relocating it from the shoulders to safe off-highway parking locations. So with the corridor management plan, basically, there's enough parking. The 2 existing Forest Service lots will get expanded. There's some new parking in the north. Also, a larger parking ride lot in the southern end of the corridor in Douglas County. What's being proposed is to build enough parking to cover the shoulder season. And then in the peak summertime, we would also implement the bike trail would be built, and then also we would run transit up and down the corridor to cover the peak demand. So essentially, we're providing the same amount of access for the corridor that exists today, and actually improving it for that matter.
On Highway 28, from when you get on Highway 28 from Highway 50, from there going all the way to Incline, is the goal to eliminate the parking along that stretch of the highway on 28 near the lake?
Essentially relocated. So the parking lots are strategically located to where a lot of the beach access is. So the parking associated with where, like Chimney Beach, Secret Harbor. Those are two popular beach areas. So basically we want to provide enough parking there so people can access directly those beaches, but also provide eventually what's not part of this Federal Lands Access Program grant, and we're still working with the Incline Village General Improvement District, is they have to replace their sewer effluent line all the way from basically Sand Harbor to US 50. And so we're working with them to actually take that out of the highway, build a new line on Forest Service property, and then they basically pave a bike path on top of it that would serve as their access road. And what that would do once that's completed is we'll connect the parking nodes so that if you park in one node, you can either walk or hop on your bike and cruise to a lot of the other beach coves and stuff that people are trying to access without having to park on the highway and walk in the travel lanes.
When the parking lots are across the highway, not near the lake, is there any parking lots across the highway where you have to park and then walk across the highway to access the
There's
the lake?
only one, and that's the Chimney Beach parking lot. And that one, we're working with NDOT to come up with some safe pedestrian crossing in that area. But the majority of them are serving on the lakeside.
Will TRPA have to sign off on this as well?
Yes.
Have they done that already?
They've been a partner in the corridor management plan. We've kept them very involved in this whole project. They think it's great. Ultimately, once design of all these facilities is complete, it has to go to TRPA for project approval before we can move forward with the construction of the projects. We have to get our permits.
In some cases, some of the parking lots up there, I lived in Incline, and some of those lots, the gates are closed during a certain period of the year, whereas people always park along the highway to access the beach regardless of the season. So how will these parking lots facilitate the visitors that are coming when those gates are closed? Where will they park? Because right now there's one lot up there, the gates are closed. So how will that take place?
It's an excellent question. We've been talking to Forest Service on ways that we can get around that. One of the ways is eventually doing a special use permit through either TTD or possibly a county in the future to keep those gates open longer. So there's ways we are going to work on that, because we do understand that is an issue, and if we put in all these great improvements and they lock the gates, it doesn't really help us. We are working through that as part of this project.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
I have a question. I don't know, Ann, maybe you have to answer this. On page 14 of 21 in the documents, there are matching share requirements. I know you said there's no cost in Carson City at this time, but what do you anticipate those matching our matching share is going to be? Every grant has a match, so I don't know who wants to answer that. Okay.
I could go ahead and answer that. So the Federal Lands Access Program requires it's by state. So for Nevada, the Federal Lands Access Program requires a 5% minimum non-federal match. Right now, through State Question 1, Washoe County 1, and some of our other grants that we have, we're looking right now at close to a 47% match. So we well exceed that. So the total project's $25 million approximately, and the Federal Lands Access Program is only covering about 12.5 of that. So, yep.
This is probably for Sheriff or the Fire Chief. As we expand the parking lots up there, field of dreams, you build it, they will come. That's going to expand our need to have a presence up there, and also medical emergency, that sort of thing. I only see this as getting more expensive for you guys.
For the record, Sheriff Furlong, currently and as anticipated into the future, we have a joint agreement with the U.S. Forest Service, and we work closely with Washoe County and Douglas down further south to jointly patrol those areas. We predominantly use reserve forces, but the highway coverage is predominantly Nevada Highway Patrol. I would not anticipate for us a dramatic impact from the project.
Okay, and for the fire, I assume the fire station there at...
Yeah, we're going to be requesting a fire boat. I will volunteer to staff it. and you're welcome to join me.
You joke, but I guarantee you that with these new parking lots, it's going to be busy there.
We have Stacy Giammi, Fire Chief, and Pilot Captain, both. We have an agreement with both departments at Lake Tahoe, so Tahoe Douglas Fire Protection District, and Incline, which is North Lake Tahoe Fire Protection District. And North Lake Tahoe handles our calls up there, unless they're serious calls, greater alarm calls, where we'll go up and send assistance, but they handle calls for us. They can get there probably 15 minutes faster than us. So it won't be an issue for them. They're not very busy. So.
Okay, Captain. All right. All right. Public comment on this issue? Anybody want to weigh in? Board, anything further? Motion's in order.
I move to approve the Federal Land Access Program Project Memorandum of Agreement for the State Route 28 corridor between Carson City and the Tahoe Transportation District as the lead agency, as well as other named parties, and to authorize the Director of the Parks and Recreation Department to sign related documents.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Abad, second by Supervisor Benkowski on a motion. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Thanks to Tahoe Transportation District. Kirk, good to see you. All right. Say hello to everybody up there. All right. Let's take up community support grants. Good morning. Janice, how you doing? Okay.
Good morning, Janice Keeler with Carson City Planning. This item is a request to reallocate a portion of the 2014 Community Services Support Grant funding awarded to Fish for malpractice insurance and allocate it to be used for services in their family dining room. So Fish, last year with our 2014 funding, they were awarded $12,200. Part of that funding was for the Ross Clinic malpractice insurance, which was to pay for a physician who didn't have malpractice insurance. That physician has left Nevada, and Fish would like to reallocate that to pay for a portion of the cost to run their family dining room. And the document I passed out was their budget for the dining room. So if you have any questions about the details, Jim Peckham from Fish is here to answer any questions.
Jim, who left?
Dr. White.
Jim Peckham, Executive Director of Fish. Let me start even a little bit before that. Rex Baggett is our main physician, and because of his past history with UNR, they pay for his malpractice insurance. We started to get very heavy workload, and Rex, oddly enough, keeps getting older every year. And we had a Dr. Ting Huang, who decided to stay home and raise her children for a couple of years, and then wanted to start getting back into medical practice. And so we had her come on board as a volunteer physician, but she did not have current employment and was in need of malpractice insurance in order to practice there. Fish decided to go ahead and purchase malpractice insurance for the facility as opposed to for an individual, based on a number of conversations that just made more sense. And that way we could, most of our physicians will work either 4 hours a week or 4 hours every other week. So we had her covered, as well as a psychiatrist who came on board shortly thereafter, that, again, we could cover multiple people by having that insurance for the practice itself. And Rex Baggett would continue to maintain his insurance through UNR. Talked with UNR to see if they could expand our coverage, and they apparently didn't have the budget or didn't have justification to be able to do that. So we went ahead and got that. We got it last September, year ago September, and then September it was due again. By that time, Dr. Huang had to relocate for family reasons outside of the state, and we had the psychiatrist who was just finishing up some services with clients and was down to about 2 or 3 that we thought we could easily transition to state mental health. And I was just uncomfortable spending $7,200 without really getting much bang for that buck.
Thanks. Supervisor Bonkowski, then Supervisor McKenna.
And Jim, although the $7,200 was designated towards the malpractice insurance, it was actually approved for general operations as part of the grant. Is that your recollection as well?
We specifically indicated that we had 2 things that we wanted to focus on. One was the dental extraction program that we help extract teeth for people in need by providing a stipend to dentists, and the $7,200 for the malpractice. I'm never had any intention of using it for any other purposes, but I don't know how the verbiage is written, to be honest with you.
I'm looking at the resolution that we passed, page 1. It's Resolution 2014-R21, where the purpose that the funds, the $12,200 were approved for, was operations, and it doesn't specifically say the malpractice insurance. What my concern was that if the money was granted for the malpractice insurance, did we even have the ability to transfer that money to a different item? But if we originally approved it for operations, and you're still
then I'm just wasting your time if that was the case.
So I just don't see a problem with the transfer as long as it was designated as operational expenditures and not specifically for the malpractice insurance. So
I did not go back and read the final document before coming in, but had some conversations with planning, and we thought that the best way to proceed is to bring it back here. So if it does in fact say that it can be used for operations, then again, I'm wasting your time here, and I apologize for that.
No, you're not wasting our time. I think it gives us the ability to approve the item, where if it specifically was designated towards malpractice insurance, I'm not sure that we could approve it. So maybe, Susan, maybe you could jump in on that. Or not. Deer in the headlights look.
Sorry, that might be Lee or Janice can answer that.
We couldn't do that. I mean, I know I think that the answer to that is that you couldn't do that. I mean, unless you went back and revisited all, it could pass another resolution on community support grants. I mean, this is an internal one, I think, is what we're going on here. But I think I read the power motion the same way as Supervisor Bonkowski reads it. I mean, it doesn't say malpractice; it says operations. What you're doing is changing an internal line item to say, hey, look, we had this in our original one, and now we want to move that to a different item in there. So I think, Brad, I read it the same way you do. I think. Okay. All right. Did I misstate anything there?
I don't know. Seeing no support right behind me, I guess they're in agreement with you.
All right. Brad, did you want Susan to still weigh in? Is it okay? All right. Supervisor McKenna.
Okay, Jim.
That deserves a thank you, doesn't it?
What happens if Rex doesn't show up?
What happens if Rex doesn't show up?
Here's my point. Let me make a point, and then you can tell me where I'm wrong. Okay. We depend on this community, on Dr. Baggett, dramatically, much more than we should. There's no incentive there to get someone else in there. And I know Rex is good for it, and he loves it, and he's the greatest person that's ever existed. But the thing is, as you mentioned, he is getting older. He's had medical problems. We all have desires in our aging to do other things. So if Rex doesn't show up, you have a clinic with no doctor and no malpractice insurance. There's no money available from the city for malpractice insurance because we did it for the food kitchen. The other thing is that when this thing came forward, it was for malpractice insurance to fund that clinic. I voted to fund that clinic. I said we're going to do it because of the clinic. I do believe there is a need for that clinic. And I would like to take this money and just set it aside until the end of the year, and hopefully we don't need to spend it on malpractice insurance. But if there is an emergency and we need to get a doctor in there, it'd be nice to have some money sitting there. And I don't know about changing these community support grants after the initial evaluation and approval, because there are other community support grant recipients out there who's had changes in their operations, and they have not been back to ask us for different money or to change their money around, that sort of thing. They live with their original contract, and I'm not chastising you here. I'm just saying this is my thought process. But I think the Ross Clinic is on shaky ground on any given day, and especially if there's no backup doctor there. So I would rather you take the malpractice insurance and try to find a doctor to supplement Rex, and if we don't spend it this year, it's available for next year.
Okay. Just kind of complete the whole picture. The money, the check was already written by the city, and it's sitting allocated for the malpractice insurance at Fish. Certainly there's a possibility that we might need to bring in another doctor, though the laws have changed in the last year and a half, where we've got some nurse practitioners that also support the Ross Clinic, and the new law does not require them to work under the supervision of a physician. So with that change in the law, Rex, even if he's not there, our nurse practitioners are able to continue to see people. Our goal would be to have a physician there, though, and certainly if we find a physician that can assist Rex, we will probably at that time reapply for malpractice insurance. I just didn't want us to get into May and not have a plan and say, oh, well, this money's just didn't get used and I'll give it back to the city, or have more complications. So I wanted to bring it forward as quickly as possible and have some conversations. And again, the change in the law has helped. So we have nurse practitioners assisting people there, as a lot of us probably senior nurse practitioners as opposed to physicians nowadays. So that's not all that uncommon. And I just thought it might make more sense for us to allocate it elsewhere.
And I probably came off too harsh towards you and not harsh enough towards to the city. But the point is this: it's money, government money, that's sitting there, not being used for the purpose designated, and not needed for the purpose designated. So,
well, at this point in time, we don't know.
That's my point.
Yeah, I mean, in 6 months.
Let's let it sit there, and you're safe. Nobody's going to come back and chastise you for not spending money that you didn't need to spend. I think it should sit there, and if you have a need in your program, your dining room program, then I think that I would be happy to hear that need and maybe find a different way of funding it. But this, I guess what bothers me among the city is we gave the money to Fish, and so therefore it's Fish's money, and that's not the case. We provided that money for a specific purpose, and it should stay for that purpose. If it's not for that purpose, then the city should take it back and reallocate it for a different purpose, but it should be at a public hearing where everyone has a chance to apply for it.
Other board comments? Public comment? Anybody want to weigh in? Anybody? Okay, well, let's bring it back here and decide. I think John raised a good point, but not certain that, my own sense is that where we are today is I think that, it doesn't, and I agree with John in a very real sense, but I think that this one also, given that there's only 6 months left in this year, I think we ought to let Fish do what they think is best to do it for our community. So that's my 2 cents. You want to make a motion, or you want to do discussion?
No, I want a discussion.
Okay.
I agree with both of you. This is the second time now in the last couple of months that we've had issues come back to us on this grant to reallocate funds for a different use, and I disagree with that policy. I think that once we designate the funds, they get used for what they're intended for, or they either roll over or they come back to the city. So that it does go through, as John said, a public process, which is how they were allocated in the first place. In this particular case, though, I question whether we even need to address anything because, again, we approved the money for operations and it wasn't specifically designated, although we may have thought it was. It doesn't appear that it was specifically designated for the malpractice fund. So I'm not sure whether this is an item that we even need to address. And I would like to know if anybody has an opinion on that.
Well, let's have Lee come on up and talk to us about why this doesn't have to be
Lee
done.
Plemmel, Community Development Director. And I guess to the first part of that, you said this second time, there's actually, we do handle, Janice handles two grants. There's the CDBG, which is the federal grant. That's very specific and narrow focus. And then we also bring at the same time forward the community service support grants, which is kind of the general pool of money. And so we brought a CDBG one previously. This is the community support service grant. So it is different. But so on the application, so we brought it to you, and I think this discussion indicates why we brought it to you. On their application, they said they were going to spend it on a specific line item, as the mayor said, within the operations generally. And I know the resolution you're referring to. So I think that gives you the ability to approve this change without taking the whole thing back as a resolution and redoing the whole resolution. So I think it gives you the ability to do that, as you said. But I thought we thought it appropriate to come back so that they told you they were going to spend the money a certain way with this grant money. And for them, we don't want to just report later without coming to you that we decided administratively that they could use it somewhere else for operations. So, and that's generally, we follow that with the CDBG and these operations. If they're not using it for what they said they were, then we're going to bring it back to the board. But, so you have the ability to make this change, I think, as you said, to kind of wrap that up. But we think it's appropriate that you approve this change or not and take action on it.
Well, I mean, I guess, Lee, in one sense, it's very good for a grantee to self-report on these things. I think that's a wonderful idea. And I think that, one of the motions that the board could do to kind of, for lack of a better phrase, to have it both ways is just say we reaffirm the grant for operations and consistent with that, you have the ability to spend that for operations. And then let it go at that, so we don't really address the issue. But I think that, fundamentally, I think that we'll leave it like that. John.
Lee, what's the source of the community support grant funds?
Carson City General Fund.
Okay, so this is local taxpayers' money.
Yes.
This isn't magic money from the feds or anything. Okay. So it's a real problem. The thing is that the money isn't that much money in the scheme of things, and it's going to a good cause. Fish does good work. Don't ever get the impression that I don't believe that. Fish does good work, but also advocates do good work. Ron Wood does good work. All the other recipients do good work. We set up a process to remove this board from at least the initial discussion of who gets the money so that political bias doesn't come into the allocation of this money. And suddenly our rules just change in the middle of the year. And that's what bothers me more than anything. If you're going to give community money to community needs, they should be based upon reality, not individual board members' whims. And I'm not suggesting that's what's happening here, but you're creating a hole in a policy that should be rigid. And I guess that's what I'm arguing for, is we go back to the rigid policy. If it's not spent for the purpose we give it, then it is either reallocated using the whole procedure again, or it's held until the next year. And that's where I'd like to see us end up.
Hey, Lee, Mr. Plemmel, suppose this issue wasn't even raised. Suppose they didn't raise the issue with you. What are you going to do then? I mean, how often does this happen? I mean, suppose they did, because the funds were, Supervisor Bankowski said they're earmarked for operations. I mean, granted, the application said malpractice insurance, but They don't have to come back and say, we're not going to, I mean, they do that. I mean, I assume that, well, I shouldn't say that, but if they just went ahead and spent it for operations, what happens then?
So this grant, as opposed to CDBG, doesn't have any reporting requirements except for at the end of the year. And this hasn't come up before because we don't track what the recipients do. We give them the money, we give them a check at the beginning of the fiscal year, and they spend it according to what they told us they were going to do. And I'm not monitoring them, I'm not receiving quarterly reports from them. And so we're trusting that they're doing it the right way. The reason this came up was because Jim, I guess in the spirit of transparency, wanted to let me know that he couldn't use it for that purpose anymore. So what do we do? And so I spoke to staff at the city manager's office, and we decided it would be best to just present it to the board to make sure that we're going through the correct procedures to make sure that they're spending it the way they're supposed to. So if everything is under operations, then it seems like any recipient can take that money and use it for whatever they want, despite what's in their application, because it's not specifically earmarked in the resolution for anything. So if they have a change, then they don't necessarily need to come to me. But in this instance, Jim did come to me just to make sure that we were doing it properly. So we can either approve it and say, yes, you could use it for this new use, or keep it the same, because that new use is considered operations also. So
they've reported at the end of the year, and as far as our department have, this grant was historically run through the city manager's office. We have only 2 or 3 years experience in getting the reporting at the end of the year. And then, as you said, we have the advisory committee at the beginning of this process before it comes to the board. So they'll see the report from last year, because these are often, almost all of them are repeat requesters, year after year. So they'll give a report of how they did last year. And so it behooves the applicants to follow and spend the money as they say, because when it comes around next year, when the advisory committee and you look at it, and if they're spending the money differently, you might think twice about giving the money, depending on the situation.
Okay, Supervisor Brankowski.
Janice, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think we need to make a decision as a policy board whether we want to approve these grant funds going forward for operations, or if we want to approve specific line items, and we can't have it both ways. And if we're going to approve them for operations, then they go to the recipient and they get to spend them however they see fit, as long as it's for operations and we don't micromanage the line items, or we approve them for specific purposes, specific line items, and we hold them to those. In this particular case, the horse is already out of the barn. I believe that, although I agree with John and the mayor that the funds should be used for the item that it was specifically designated for, I don't think that we have the ability to go back and hold them to that at this point.
Okay. Well, why don't we try this? Why don't we take a motion that we appreciate being advised by Fish about the change in their grant, and we encourage them to spend the money in accordance with the terms that we sent it out.
I'll second that.
How's that? Okay. And so I guess that I'll make that as a motion. I mean, I usually don't do that as a chair, but I'll make that as a motion. But there's a second. We'll see where it goes. Discussion on that. And part of that is Jim, is what really being said there is thank you for coming. I think what I have is thank you for bringing this to our attention. There's an issue that's there. One way or the other, it's not going to get held against you or Fish if it comes back next round of grants, okay? I mean, because, kind of hard to penalize someone who's self-reporting these issues. So, hang on. No, wait till it's done. All right, so on the motion, further discussion? All in favor signify by saying, we okay? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried unanimous. Okay. You're okay, Lee. Just take it where it was. Don't. The motion was to accept their report that they that they are probably going to use the money for something else. They can do that consistent with what the ordinance, the resolution says, and go forward. All right. All right. Mr. Peckham, I usually don't do this, but I have something for you up here that I ran away with.
Is it a big check?
Don't it?
It's a dirty apron.
Says the President of the board, no, I'm returning the apron from Thanksgiving.
Because I can't afford to buy new.
Can't afford to buy new. All right.
You got $7,200.
No, and just, obviously off the record, it's not that I couldn't spend the $7,200, it just didn't make any sense.
I think we understand all that, so we got you. We got you. All right.
Jim, I think, I think the real thing is that as the city works through how they're going to give money to basically nonprofits that do city functions, I think that's one of the things that they need to think about is how rigid do we want to hold you guys to the spending. And I thank you for bringing it forward. It's just, I really think that you got a problem there with the Ross Clinic and Rick's, so you probably need to save money.
Yeah, I personally had an intention to spend it as allocated, but sometimes stuff comes up, and it would have been stupid to waste $7,200. I'd rather give it back to the city than to have bought the malpractice. Now, 4 months from now, I might need malpractice insurance, and I'll spend it on it.
Keep talking, and we'll get the $7,200 back.
Oh. But, Merry Christmas.
All right, we're going to take a break for about 5 or 10 minutes here while we get set up. We're in recess for 5 to 10 minutes.